guys, it's Eric here at Farpoint Mowers and More. This is one of those little 3.5 horsepower diesel engines. These things are stupid popular, and I've actually got more than one of them now. What I'm going to do today, though, is give you a full teardown and rebuild on this thing. We're not going to get into measurements, but I will give you torque specs when needed. To disassemble this thing, the very first thing you're going to want to do is make sure it's out of fuel. Take all the gas out of it, drain it, and same with the oil, because you don't want that oil just getting all over the place. I'm going to grab some tools and we're going to get started. Let's do it. Okay, in my case, we are out of fuel already. All right, once you have all of the fuel and oil taken out of this thing, we're going to remove this line right here. It goes from the fuel tank to the diesel injector. The injector return line is what it is, any gas or diesel that wasn't used. And then we can remove the gas tank. There is a bolt here, but it's kind of hidden by a shroud. But under here, there are two, 1 and 2. You can see right there. There's one and there's one. We're going to remove those two, and that'll allow us to pull this tank up and off. This is a 13 millimeter, so let's go ahead and do that. And there we go. And when you pull this off, you can just set this aside. There's one more connection you're going to have to remove, though, and that is this one right here. I'll pull the engine around so you can see it. This goes to our fuel pump, which is this unit right here. We're going to squeeze that clamp. Sometimes you can do it by hand. There we go. And that's it. We're going to take that, put it off to the side. If you forgot to take your fuel out, you're realizing that right now because stuff is pouring everywhere, and that's not fun. There are also 2 little rubber pieces you want to hang on to, and we'll just set all that aside. In this case, I'm going to be putting my parts up underneath. Cool. All right, next up, we're going to remove this piece right here, which is a 10 millimeter. You can see it right there. You can use a box end wrench like so to get that loose, but you do have a spring, and you're going to want to unhook that spring from here. You can do that either before or after you get it loose, but it does have to come off. So I'm going to take that loose right there. Okay, I've got that loose. And then this, you kind of just wiggle it out of there, out of that hole. Just remember which hole it went into. I'm going to use a pair of needle nose pliers here to pull on it. And there it is. We'll just sit that on a table along with the screw. All right, we've got that loose. Let's go ahead and rotate this around, and we're going to take off some of the top stuff here. This is our air cleaner box. Undo that. It lifts up and out, and we can take a 10 mil here, loosen that up, and it's a good time if you've never replaced the filter on this. This engine is new. I'm just tearing this down for y'all. You can take that out and locate a replacement, but there it is. If you can't find a replacement for it, you could at least take an air chuck and blow out all the dust and carbon that's in there. All right, once we've got that out of the way, we've got 2, these are 8 millimeter, I believe, and we're going to get those out of there. That'll remove our air cleaner. So most of the things on this are going to be 8 millimeter, 10 millimeter, or 13 millimeter. So as long as you have those, you should be all set. Okay, that's one. Now there should be a gasket when we remove this, so just remember where it goes. It's not a bad idea to mark all this stuff. If this is the first time rebuilding an engine, you can write down on a piece of paper where everything went. There we go. Wow. Well, there should be a gasket there. This one, however, did not come with it. So you might want to add a gasket, and you can make a gasket out of a piece of cardboard if you're in a pinch. All right, I'm going to set those pieces aside. And we're going to move around to the other side here. This is our muffler. We're going to remove the muffler, and that is a 10 millimeter. If you own one of these diesel engines, they do tend to get sooty. They'll soot up really badly. If you notice, I'll show you here in a second, this does have a gasket, so don't lose that. And if you notice, this actually does come apart because this can be cleaned. You can decarbon these. If you notice reduced power, reduced performance, you can see in here, the soot has already started to build up. It's not terrible on this, but just be aware. And in our case, we're just going to roll with what we got there, and I will set that aside. All right, next up, we're going to rotate this back around. We have a bunch of 8mm. 1, 2, let's see here, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 8mm. That's going to remove our housing and our pull start. So let's go ahead, take all those loose. And it's okay to pull the engine on its side. It's okay to rock it around as long as it's out of oil, which it should be. Then you should have no problem. Trying to do some of this off to the side so it gets caught on camera here is making it a little more difficult than it ought to be. And then you have 2 more here and here. And once you have all those out, this should just pull right off. Okay? Now, you can take 1, 2, 3 10mm bolts and remove that as well, but it's not necessary unless you have a problem with your pull starter. In this case, I don't have any. One thing I do want to show you about these Chinese diesel engines is the build quality is not all that great. This is a lot of plastic. These tend to be a failure point on these, where the little tabs that come out, you can see them there, they will fail or get screwed up, and you have to disassemble it and kind of patch it back together. That being said, once these things start to go, it's a matter of time before they go all together. Now, before I move on any further, let's talk about this. This is how an air-cooled engine stays cool. This is actually not just a pull start mechanism, but it's a fan shroud. This shroud ensures that as this thing rotates, you can see the vanes pushing air. It will push air, that air will come up, and you can see a shield here and a shield here. It comes up and forces that air around these fins right here. See that? So you got air-cooled fins, and that's what's going on there. That's going to just burn right through there and blow across it. If you have a rat's nest, which is common for mice over the winter to build nests here and here, they're blocking airflow. You can end up with a damaged or broken engine fairly quickly. Okay. All right, next up, we're going to take off the 8mm here that's holding on this shroud, and the 8mm here, which is holding on that shroud. Get those out of the way. And looks like we're going to have to remove the fuel line next here. This is the high pressure fuel line. Turn it around. This is a high pressure fuel line that goes from the diesel injection pump to the diesel injector here. So we're going to remove this, and then we're going to go ahead and remove the diesel injector. Now, if possible, you should be using a line wrench. I don't have one here. I've just got a combo wrench. So I'm going to attempt to get that off of there with this, and that one came loose pretty nicely. We'll get that up and out of the way, get it loose on one side, go around, break it loose on the other side. This side, a little bit more difficult, a little tighter quarters there. What you definitely don't want to do, and you're going to lose a little diesel fuel came out there, you can see it. We'll need to have this line loose I'll show you when we put it back together again in order to bleed the air out of this. But we can set that aside. What you don't want to do is bend that in any way, because that's going to be a huge problem. All right, next up, we're going to take the injector out. I believe those are 13s. And if possible, you want to try to give it a little bit of even pressure. You're going to take that loose. You're going to pull that off. There are 2 washers, 2 nuts, and this piece. And all of it has to go back. The flat side faces up. You can see it's kind of beveled here. That side's definitely got to stay downward. Remember that when you're putting it back together. This injector also has some pretty delicate parts on it. It's called a cup and a ring. All right. So there is our injector cup. We have a copper gasket or O-ring that goes in there, and then there is our injector. This is direct injection, and so you can actually see, if you look closely, you can see soot already built up on that from when it was running. Okay. So I'm going to take that, I'm going to set it aside, and I'm going to leave that together, because if you miss any of those pieces, you're going to have problems. I'm not going to take that off because it doesn't get in the way of the rest of our job, but you're welcome to do so if you want to. The next thing I'm going to do, however, after I remove our plate that was kind of in the way, is I am going to remove this. This is our diesel pump. It's our fuel pump. It's a high pressure pump. It runs off the cam gear, which you'll see inside here in a little bit. Actually, a very little bit. And unscrew that, and then that just lifts up. And it probably won't want to come all the way out. Sometimes it will, sometimes it won't. In this case, it's not wanting to come out. But it's important that you take that loose because we can't get the cam gear out if that is tightened all the way down. It'll become evident when we take it the rest of the way. Okay, next up, we are going to take off our valve cover. That's this piece up here. That is a 14, I believe. Take that loose. Kind of unusual for a valve cover to simply have one bolt, but this one does. And when you take this off, you're going to notice that this stays attached. This is our decompression lever. Diesels are very hard to start, so you want to flop that down when you pull on it to start it. Okay, so I'm going to put that in there and leave that alone. Okay, next up we have, let's take a look at the head here. This is our head, right? 1, 2, 3, 4 bolts holds the head in place. Also, you have a valve cover gasket. Don't let that get damaged or broken, or this thing will drip a lot of oil all over you. I'm gonna lay that over here. Okay, with the valve cover removed, we are going to remove this. This is our rocker arm assembly. You have a bolt right here with another washer, and we're just gonna break that loose and set the whole assembly off to the side. If I can get it loose, I'm gonna get a hammered while on that a little bit. There we go. And that's going to come up and out. It has a pin, and that pin will have to go back down there. And then we do have a washer and stuff, so I'm going to set that aside, kind of in its own little area. Now we have these. It's a little hard to see, but there it is. We have these. These are called push rods. They are identical on this, but not on everything. Set those aside as well. These are really precision, so make sure you don't bend or damage those. If you lose one, you are in deep trouble. Okay, and that exposes, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 head bolts. These are pretty tight. I'm going to use a gun on them. You're going to want to start and do this in a crisscross pattern. When we tighten this back down, we need a torque wrench. Okay, that one's out. All right, hit this one. Well, that one came right out. Go figure. And that one came right out. So our last one here, let's see if we can get it loose. And there it goes. Don't ask me why that is the way it is. These also are all the same size, and you can set those aside, and we are ready to lift our head off of the block. Let's take a look at this head. It has a head gasket. Now, in automotive use, we would not reuse a head gasket, but the solid metal is capable of being reused, so you're just going to set that aside. Valve-wise, I'll get into this here separately. There are valve keepers, 2 little half-moon shaped pieces, and your valve spring, right? So you're going to push down and use a magnet to pull those out. So one side holding the valve, push down, and then remove, right? Usually it takes 2 people. It's a whole lot easier. You can lay this thing flat on a table to get extra leverage. Okay. And you can see the soot, the diesel soot from running. Okay, let's roll this up and let's take a look at the positioning of our piston. You can see we have a shaped piston, and we don't want to reassemble this thing backwards. So it's a good idea to just make a note that the V shape is towards the top of the engine, not the bottom. V shape towards the top. Okay? All right. We're getting there. Now the most difficult part of this procedure. We have to take off the flywheel in order to get the crankshaft out. And I don't remember what size that is. I think it's a 22. There we go. So it is a 19. Again, I'm going to use an impact for this. You don't want to use an impact for a lot of the nuts and bolts on this, but this one, yes. And that comes off. You're going to take that loose. No washer there. It's kind of a lock washer built into it. And then you have this plastic piece. Again, make sure that that goes back on or you won't have an engine. Set all that aside. And this is the flywheel. It's a weighted mass that helps keep the engine spinning when it's not going through the power stroke of the 4 strokes of a diesel engine. or a gas engine. Of course, if this was gas, you would have magnets inserted in here somewhere and a coil, and every time it spun around, the magnets would pass across the coil and cause electricity to be created. But in this case, that's a no. So I'm going to get a pair of pry bar here, right? I'm going to push against it, and then I'm going to do something that seems crazy, but I'm going to hit this thing a few times and try to break this loose, because as you can see, it don't want to come off. It's in there. These things get kind of... So I'm going to apply some pressure. There it goes. That seems crazy, but it works. So there it is, it's out. It does have a key. If the key is loose, take it out. If it's not loose, you probably still want to take it out because you don't want to damage the seal here. And we are down to it. We're about to expose the insides of the engine. You don't have to take this piece off. You probably should if you're going to do cleaning. But in this case, for the sake of time, I'm just going to leave it be. All right. Okay, so we're down to it. What I am going to do here is I'm going to clean up my area a little bit. Get my nuts and bolts out of here, the strays, and get some of the tools that I won't be needing for this next part out of the way. And the last bit to disassemble this engine, actually I am going to remove that. It'll help the engine lay flatter. Okay. Yeah, now it sits a little flatter, a little easier for you to see this. Oops. All right, these are going to be 13 millimeter, and there's a bunch of them. I'm going to go ahead, I won't film all of it, but I'm going to go ahead and take them off. Do so in a crisscross pattern. Try to get those out randomly so that it doesn't get stuck or get cockeyed when you start to take it apart. So let me do that. Okay, all of them are off. I'm going to set this thing upright-ish, and I'm going to pry on that. You can see I left the bolts in there. I believe, I'm almost positive that they're all the same size. Yeah, they are. So if you want to take them out, you certainly can. Just for the sake of time though, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start wiggling up on this, and there it goes. You do have a gasket. I want to be real careful with it. So there it is, it's out. You flip it over. I'll dump all the screws out, but whatever. There we go. And I want to show you the inside. So now this comes out pretty easily. I'll show you why here in a second. Okay, here we are with it out. Here is our oil pump. You can even see our dipstick. And here is our bearing, or one of our two main bearings. Usually on automobiles and on most mowers engines, you're going to have just a clamshell bearing here. So this is kind of nice that it has a roller bearing. You definitely don't want to damage that. Then this piece here, you can kind of see it flips up and down. It's attached to this, which was our throttle control. And it's a very simplistic setup. As I move that, you can kind of see it's moving that. Right? And the reason it's doing that, grab my pump, is that this is our throttle control. So when you go to reassemble this thing, this has got to be in the right spot or you'll have issues. Or it won't go in and you'll crush it. I don't know why, but for some reason, this one has 3 gaskets on there. I don't believe it was supposed to, but it may be a spacing thing, so I will put it back the way it was when I go back together with it. Up here you'll see we have a roller bearing, and that is to run on our cam. So every time the cam lobe comes across this, this is going to pump. Low pressure fuel comes in here, gets pressurized by the pump. High pressure fuel comes out through the metal line and goes to our injector. Let's take a look at what's left. We have a gasket here. Please remove that and be very careful not to damage that, or you'll have big problems. And then we have our cam gear and our crank gear. We want to make sure, this is our lobe here, if you can see this. That's our lobe that runs our fuel pump. Every time that rolls around, it's squirting a fuel pump to inject fuel. There are markings we need to pay attention to, and here they are. See that dot right there? See that dot and that dot on those gears? They have to line up. That is our timing for the timing gears that we have here. The crankshaft has to move around exactly when the camshaft is in position for all of the 4 strokes to happen properly. So make sure that when you reassemble, you have those lined up. Okay? All right, once we feel like we've got everything in place, we can go ahead, and sometimes this is not so easy. There it goes. And we can remove our cam gear Here's our cam gear. That is our fuel cam. Here's our intake and exhaust cams. Well, actually, I don't remember which one is intake or exhaust, but either way, there it is. And it sits in a bearing here and a bearing here. Set that aside. Be very careful. Very hard steel, very easy to break. Okay, we're down, getting down to it. What I want you to see is right here. See that? Those are called tappets. We need to remove those, and we need to remember to put those back in. They might, to some of you, look like valves, but they are not valves. They're called tappets. The push rods that we took out earlier sit on the end there and push up and down as the cams come across them. Tappets. All right, we're really getting down to it. I'm going to rotate this around so you can see the other side here. And it's a little hard now, but I'm going to rotate this. There we go. I'm going to rotate this so that I can access the two cam caps, or not cam caps, connecting rod end cap. There, it has two bolts. They're 10 millimeter. These do have a torque value. You're going to definitely need to be torquing them when you put it back together, but I'll go ahead and remove those. Also pay close attention to which way that is sitting here, because if you put it on the back way, it will cause damage. And there it is. This is our connecting rod end cap. You will see it does not have a separated bearing. If this were to become damaged, you'd have to replace the whole unit. Also, the crank would probably be damaged. We take that out, we can lay that off to the side. And we're down to the last two pieces that need to come off this engine. The first one being the piston itself has got to come out. And what you do there, you're going to push the piston until it is in its upright position, and then you're going to take your fingers, push against. Woo, that was close. And don't drop it on the floor. And there it is, you got your piston out. That's your connecting rod there. There are piston pin clips here. You have a piston pin right there, or a wrist pin. And then you have three rings. The bottom one is an oil scraper ring. The top two are compression rings. And we will need a special tool to reinstall that. Last step, let's go ahead and remove the crankshaft. And here it is in all its glory. And you can see the marking where it needs to line up with the, that's where it's going to need to line up with the cam gear. All right, so that's it for part one of this mess. Here's how this works. The next things I'm going to do, and I'm going to do these off camera, is I'm going to clean all this up. I'm going to clean this down. I'm going to clean all the oil out of here. I'm going to get everything prepped. And then I need to take some measurements. I'm going to do that off camera as well. I'm going to measure cylinder width to make sure that it's not worn out. I'm going to measure my piston ring gap. I'm going to measure to make sure that the bearings on the crank are okay. And I'm going to take a look at the head with a flat edge and make sure that it's not warped. Now this engine was running, it was just noisy, but it is a diesel engine, so it probably is just normal. But there you go, so there's it. I hope you enjoyed part one, and I'll see you again in part two when we reassemble this thing. Take care.